This is FluentCast. Real English, real conversations, real confidence. Let's get fluent. This is FluentCast.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of FluentCast, the podcast where we explore English through culture, ideas, and the real experience of learning a language. I'm Diego, your host, and today we are going to talk about something that almost every English learner wonders at some point. And the question usually sounds like this. When will I start thinking in English? Because in the beginning, what most learners experience is something like a two-step process. First, you think in your own language, Portuguese, German, Spanish, whatever it might be, and then after that thought appears, you translate it into English. But at some point, usually without noticing exactly when, English starts appearing in your thoughts directly. So, what is happening in the brain during that process? To explore that, I invited a friend of mine from the UK, Brenda Richards, and she is an ESL teacher and she also studied neuroscience. So she spends a lot of time thinking about how the brain learns language. And before we start, you might notice something interesting in this episode, my accent versus Brenda's accent. She is from the UK, so you'll hear British accent during our conversation as well, which is great listening practice, by the way. So, without any further ado, Brenda, welcome to FluentCast.
Thank you, Diego. I'm very happy to be here. And yes, that question you mentioned, when do I start thinking in English, is one I hear from students all the time. But what most people don't realize is that they are already thinking in language constantly. We all have something called inner speech. That's the voice in your head that narrates things, asks questions, reacts to situations. For example, you might wake up in the morning and think, okay, I need coffee. Or you might think, did I send that email yesterday? That internal voice is a huge part of how the brain organizes thought. And when you learn another language, you're gradually building the ability for that internal voice to operate in a second language as well.
So in the beginning, that voice is still speaking your native language most of the time.
Exactly. At the beginning, your brain relies on the strongest network it already has, which is your first language. So if you want to say something in English, your brain usually goes through a path like this. First, the thought appears in your native language, and then you translate it. That's completely normal. In fact, from a neuroscience perspective, it's actually efficient. Your brain is using the pathway that already exists. What's happening during learning is that a new pathway is slowly being built for English. And like any pathway in the brain, it gets stronger the more it's used.
Talking about that, one thing I've noticed with my students is that at some point, something funny starts happening inside their heads. They will come to class and say something like this: Diego, I think half of the sentence in Portuguese and the rest appears in English. And they look worried, like something is wrong with their brain.
Yes, I hear that all the time. Students think they've somehow broken their language system. But actually, that's one of the most interesting stages in learning. Because what's happening is that both languages are active at the same time.
Exactly. I sometimes ask them, can you give me an example of what that thought sounded like? And they will say something like mixturing both languages, like, Okay, amanhã eu preciso finish that report before lunch. A mixture of, okay, tomorrow I need to finish that report before lunch.
Right, a perfectly bilingual thought. Half Portuguese, half English. And from the outside, it sounds chaotic. But from a brain perspective, it's actually a good sign. It means the English network is starting to activate automatically. The brain is basically saying, okay, I know this part in English already, let's use it.
It's like your brain is code switching with itself.
Exactly. Your brain becomes a multilingual meeting room. Different languages raising their hands.
So, let's talk about the moment every learner is waiting for. The moment when English stops being translated. Brenda, when does that shift really happen? And does it really happen?
Oh, it happens. It usually happens when the brain starts trusting the language. And that trust comes from familiarity. A lot of people think thinking in English happens when you know a huge amount of vocabulary. But vocabulary alone doesn't do it. Your brain actually relies much more on patterns.
Patterns like ready-made phrases?
Exactly. For example, if you've heard something like, "What are you up to?" 100 times in conversations or films, your brain stores that whole expression as one unit, not as 5 separate words. So when you want to ask someone that question, the brain just pulls the phrase out of storage. No translation required.
That's an awesome example. I also tell my students, you don't think when you hear "how are you?" Like, "how are you" is so automatic that you recognize that block of words and then you just answer, "I'm good, I'm fine." That is when translation is not necessary. And that also explains why sometimes learners say, "I don't know why this sentence is correct. It just sounds right."
Yes, and that's actually a sign of progress because your brain has learned the pattern through exposure. Language is becoming automatic instead of analytical. And when enough patterns become automatic, something interesting happens. Thoughts start appearing directly in English.
So, if someone listening right now is thinking, okay, that sounds great, but how do I encourage that process? Is there anything they can do?
Yes, and the good news is that the techniques are surprisingly simple. One thing I often recommend is narrating small actions in your head.
So, you mean like talking to yourself?
Exactly. Which, by the way, is completely normal. Everyone does it. For example, when you're making coffee in the morning, your inner voice might say, okay, where's the cup? I need sugar. Maybe I'll add some milk. It's not a full conversation, it's just small fragments. But those fragments activate English internally.
I sometimes tell my students to describe what they are doing. Like, for example, when they are at the supermarket, I always tell them, think in your head about everything you see and do. Like, I am at the supermarket. What do I see here? Oh, I see oranges. I see eggs. I want something to eat. What can I buy? Oh, I see the bread. It's like I always tell them, do this. It will help you to think about your actions and connect actions to your thoughts in English, how to describe. If you know how to describe this in your own language, try to do this in your second language, in the language you are learning, in English.
Yes, that's perfect. Another thing that works well is asking yourself little questions during the day. For example, what should I cook tonight? Where did I put my keys? Did I reply to that email?
And if someone answers those questions in English too, that is even better.
Exactly. because then you're creating a full mini conversation inside your head. It might look something like this. Where did I put my keys? Oh, they're probably in my bag.
Which means you are basically practicing English without even opening a textbook.
Yes, and that's the key idea. Language learning isn't only what happens in class, it's also what happens in those tiny moments during the day when your brain is experimenting with the language. And the more often those moments happen, the more natural thinking in English becomes.
So this really connects with something I talked about in the previous episode last week, neuroplasticity. I talked about how the brain changes based on repetition.
Exactly. Every time you use a language, listening, speaking, reading, thinking, you're strengthening those neural pathways. It's very similar to learning a sport or a musical instrument. At first, everything feels slow and conscious, but with repetition, the brain builds efficiency, and eventually the process becomes automatic. That's when learners often realize something surprising. They suddenly notice that they were thinking about something in English without translating.
Yes, I've heard that exact story from many students. They don't notice the shift immediately, but later they realize, wait, I was thinking about that conversation in English.
And that's a beautiful moment in language learning because it means the language has stopped being just a school subject. It has become part of your cognitive system, another voice your brain can use.
That is a great way to put it. Another voice in your mind. And I think that is a good place to end today's conversation. Brenda, thank you so much for joining us on FluentCast.
Thank you for having me, Diego. Oh, I love conversation like this one. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
And to everyone listening, if you enjoyed these conversations about language, culture, and how learning actually works, make sure you subscribe to FluentCast wherever you are listening. New episodes come out regularly every week, and they are designed to help you understand English and not just as a system of grammar, but as a living language connected to the real world. And if you want to go further and develop your English with structured guidance, you can also check out Fluent English Academy. We work with students worldwide across Europe, Latin America, and many other regions through online one-on-one classes. So wherever you are, you can work directly with a teacher and build your fluency step by step. You'll find the link in the episode descriptions. Thank you for listening. This was FluentCast. I'm Diego, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
FluentCast is a production of Fluent English Academy. To learn English in a natural and practical way, visit www.fluentenglishacademy.com.br.